Welcome to the Virtual Coffee Lab. My name is Mike. Today we're in the kitchen and we're going to be brewing a Sumatran honey processed coffee from Sweet Maria's, and we're going to be using the French press to brew our coffee. We're going to go through this step by step, so let's get brewing. All right, as I mentioned, we're going to go through this step by step. The French press has a real great following of people that just love to brew their coffee using this method. It's simple, it's consistent, and really there's only a couple parts that you need as far as the brewing device goes. It's not really complicated. It might look intimidating to some, but it's really not that big of a deal. So this French press this one happens to be made by Freeling. This is my son-in-law's. He's letting me use this for the video today. This is a double-walled stainless steel French press. The container keeps the water really hot, so it'll keep your coffee hot when you're waiting to pour it. This actually is the filter device. There's a fine meshed stainless steel screen in here, and then there's also this stainless steel plate that you see that also keeps out some of the larger grounds as well. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the other items we're going to need in order to get this coffee brewed. Of course, we're going to need the coffee itself. I've pre-measured 25 grams of whole bean coffee. We're going to grind that on this grinder. And there are different grind settings on the grinder. So you'll see here how it has a French press actually marked on the top of the grinder, and you can turn this dial. So I'm going to make it a little finer than the French press. So you need to have coarser coffee so that it doesn't flow through the screen, right? And that's fine because we're actually going to be steeping this coffee. We're going to allow time for the water to extract the flavors from the bean. So that's no problem. So you're going to want to set your grinder so that it is towards the French press setting or a medium fine grind. We're also going to need water. I'm going to be using this kettle. This is a kettle that has an adjustable temperature. You can just use a kettle that you use for a tea. Now, depending upon how dark your coffee is, so if you've got a really dark roasted coffee, then you're going to want to use hot water that's not as hot as if you were to be brewing a lighter roast or a medium roast coffee. So mine is a medium roast coffee. I'm going to have my water just below boiling, probably about 208 to 209 degrees. If you have darker coffee, I would suggest you go to the lower range, 201 to 205 degrees, and that will reduce the over extraction and some of the bitterness that you may experience in the taste of the coffee. Last but not least, we're going to need a scale to weigh out the water as well as the coffee beans. I've already pre-measured these coffee beans. We're going to use 350 grams of hot water. Okay, the first thing that I want to do is preheat my French press. That is going to help keep my water hotter, or the coffee hotter as it's steeping. And you don't have to do this. A lot of people just are quick, throw the coffee in and you're good to go. But I like to have mine preheated. I don't fill it up all the way. I find that as long as I fill it up maybe a third to half of the way, that's plenty to heat up the stainless steel. Okay, first we'll grind the coffee. So one of the problems or one of the frustrations that people have when they grind coffee, whole bean coffee at home, is depending upon how much humidity is in the air, you'll get static and you'll get coffee grounds or the chaff that tend to kind of fly everywhere. And so there's been a couple of tricks that people do that are online that you may have heard about before. One is actually taking a sprayer with some fresh water and just pumping once onto the beans before you grind them, mix them up, and then pour them into the grinder, and that reduces static electricity. And the other is to take a spoon, wet it, mix the whole bean coffee, and then go ahead and put it in the grinder. And then it actually, it does seem to make a difference. In this demonstration, I didn't do that. We got a little bit of static. It wasn't too bad, but you can expect that to happen. All right, the French press is preheated. My water is ready. I'm going to actually weigh out my water now, putting it in here. The water temperature in the kettle is 210 degrees. And I'm going to pour in 350 grams of water. And then just simply pour in the grounds. And mix in the coffee. And then put the plunger over. Set it just a little. And set your timer. I like to have the coffee steep for about 3.5 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and begin to push the plunger down and be ready to brew our coffee. While we're waiting for this coffee to finish brewing, there's a couple of things I thought I would mention. If you really want to have a great coffee experience, I would consider using fresh home roasted beans or fresh whole beans to be able to use for your coffee. Taking coffee out of a can and then just pouring it into a French press, it's great that you're using that brewing method, but honestly, you're going to have a remarkably better experience with fresh roasted coffee. The other is you want to be sure you're using purified water or just good clean water. You don't want to have impurities in it. You don't want to have any aromas or flavors in it from like city water like chlorine or well water. You might have sulfur or iron that you would want to be sure to get out of your water. So use a purifier. And then third, you want to have a good burr grinder that's going to grind this coffee to the right size so that you have a good experience and you don't have a bunch of grounds in your coffee, but then you have ground it fine enough where you're going to get enough coffee extraction to not have watery tasting coffee. One last thing, this coffee that I'm brewing here, this Sumatran honey press coffee, I actually bought 10 pounds of this coffee from Sweet Maria's, and I enjoyed it so much I didn't want to drink the last pound of this coffee that I had left. I didn't want to roast it. I wanted to kind of hold off because I had this experience to look forward to. And so after a couple of months, I just didn't want the coffee to get old, and I roasted it this last week. And it's just been a really enjoyable cup of coffee. It really had a great experience drinking this coffee. Okay, we are at 3.5 minutes. So I'm going to start to press the plunger down. You want to do it slowly, and that way you won't have coffee grounds compressed and trying to push over that that barrier, that ring from the filter media. So we're going to push it down slow. And we're also trying not to create a lot of water disruption. And I'm not going to push it all the way down. I'm going to push it just about all the way down. I don't want to compress the grounds and then have them push through the screen media. And so I'm going to stop it right there. And we're ready to serve. And it looks like it's got a good extraction. I'm sensing that thicker body in the coffee. It's definitely not over extracted. If you leave the water steeping too long, you could get bitterness in your coffee. There's definitely not bitterness. This is a great cup of coffee. You'll notice that looking inside the cup, there is a little bit of silt that you can see. As you drink this coffee, you may feel a little thicker of a body or a silty sensation, but not much really. You really don't sense it that much. Pouring it out, you can see there's hardly any silt here in the cup. But let's take a look at cleaning the French press, and then we'll see a little bit of leftover grounds and how to clean this up. So I just remove the plunger, pour out any remaining coffee, and then the grounds you can either recycle or you can throw in the garbage. I'm going to go ahead and throw these in the garbage for this video. And then you're just going to want to have some hot water, and you're going to want to rinse out both the container and the plunger. You'll notice that the plunger doesn't have really any coffee on it at all, and that's because I didn't press the plunger down into the grounds at the bottom of the carafe. Even if you don't plan on drinking all of the coffee in the carafe, don't push the plunger all the way into the grounds, because this pushes it into the wire mesh media, and it just causes a little more difficulty for cleanup. But even more importantly, there's a potential for some grounds to come through the filter media. So I would encourage you to give the French press a try. There's other brewing methods. I had a video that I made a few weeks ago, and it was for the Clever Dripper. So if you're interested in learning about the Clever Dripper, click on this link. Brewing coffee with the French press is easy to do. It really doesn't cost a lot of money. You can get a French press for as little as $30 online, or you can spend as much as $200 on a fancy one if you want to do that. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you've liked it. Also, subscribe to this channel. That would be awesome. And most importantly, hit the bell notification. The next time I upload a video, you'll be notified. Thanks for joining me here at the Virtual Coffee Lab, and we'll see you next week.